Nobody tells you this in school. I spent years reading every book on wealth I could find, convinced that if I just learned the right stock strategy, the money would follow. It didn't. So one day I sat down with a man who had built three separate fortunes in three completely different industries and asked him his secret formula. He laughed. He said, "I've never picked a winning stock in my life. I just never stopped asking people for things." That answer bothered me for years. So let's start from zero. In 1892, Andrew Carnegie is running the largest steel operation in the world. Reporters ask what he looks for when hiring the men who run his empire. Everyone expects him to say engineers, metallurgists, men who understand the chemistry of steel. He doesn't. He says he can teach any smart man the steel business in 6 months, but he can never teach a man how to sell. Carnegie built one of the largest fortunes in human history, not because he understood ore, but because he understood the people who bought it. You've probably heard the story that gets told about wealth. Get good grades, get a stable job, learn to pick good investments, and the money compounds while you sleep. That story isn't false. It's just incomplete in a way that quietly misleads almost everyone who believes it. In the 1990s, researchers Thomas Stanley and William Denko set out to study America's actual millionaires, not celebrities, not heirs, the anonymous ones next to you at the grocery store. They expected portfolio managers and stock pickers. What they found was strange. Most of them weren't investors by trade at all. They were owners of ordinary businesses, a scrap metal dealer, a pest control operator, a paving contractor. What they shared wasn't a talent for markets. It was a talent for convincing another human being to hand over money in exchange for something. It's here where it gets interesting. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years interviewing the wealthiest men of his era, Carnegie, Edison, Ford, for a book that would go on to sell over 100 million copies. He expected each of them to describe a different formula. Steel had its formula, oil had its formula, automobiles had its formula. But underneath all of it, he found the same pattern dressed in different industries. Nearly every one of these men had early in life been forced to sell something nobody wanted to buy, and had gotten good at it before they got good at anything else. Think about what investing actually requires. Capital you don't have yet. You cannot compound money you haven't earned. But selling requires nothing except your voice, your persistence, and a willingness to hear no and try again. It's the only wealth-building skill on earth with a starting cost of zero. That's the entire reason it produces more millionaires than any strategy that requires money to make money. In the 1950s, Mary Kay Ash was passed over for a promotion at a company she'd built for 25 years. The job went to a man she had personally trained at twice her salary. She quit and started her own company with $5,000. No factory, no breakthrough product. What she had was a system for teaching ordinary women, many of whom had never held a job, how to sell face-to-face. Within a decade, her company had produced more self-made millionaires than any single corporation in American history up to that point, not through a better product, but through teaching a skill that scaled infinitely and cost nothing to learn. And here's the part that should bother you if you've spent years chasing the other path. Warren Buffett, the man everyone points to as proof that investing is the road to wealth, was asked what single course he'd recommend to a young person trying to get ahead. He didn't say accounting. He didn't say finance. He said a public speaking course, because the ability to sell an idea can increase a person's value by 50%. And without it, even a brilliant idea sitting in your head is worth nothing to anyone else. The wealthiest investor alive was pointing straight at the other skill. So why doesn't anyone teach it? Because selling has an image problem. It sounds a little dishonest, a little desperate. Investing sounds intelligent. Selling sounds cheap. So we built a culture around teaching one and being embarrassed by the other, then acted confused when the ordinary business owner ends up wealthier than the man who read every investing book on the shelf. Investing skill compounds a sum of money you already have. Selling skill compounds you. It doesn't need a market to cooperate or a decade of patience before it pays out. Every single day, it gives you an immediate, measurable result. The deal happens or it doesn't, and you find out within minutes. That's exactly why it can be learned faster and monetized sooner than almost anything else you could study. And it doesn't stay confined to a cash register or a boardroom. A parent selling a child on eating vegetables, an employee selling a manager on a raise, a founder selling an investor on a vision that doesn't exist yet. It's the same underlying mechanic every time. Someone has to move another human being from no to yes. The people who get remarkably good at that mechanic tend to end up wealthy almost as a side effect, regardless of which industry they happen to land in. The skill was never hidden. It was just never flattered. And that's the real reason the man across the table from me never picked a winning stock. He never needed to. He'd already found the machine that manufactures the capital investing only knows how to multiply. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for the efforts that I'm putting in to get these informative videos. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.